a new main game mode has been added to the game, or rather will be added tomorrow. It's co-op time with link rates, but let's go through the news all at once. As usually, we start with the quality of life, and there's some really good stuff in there. There's some of the most important stuff that we've been asking for since release. First off, as I mentioned in the last video already, now it's being implemented tomorrow, or maybe even now. We are getting the ability to look at enemy resistances and see exactly what their resistances are and their ailment resistances and how they might change with buffs and debuffs. Oh, perfect. Really nice. Love that. Already fantastic. But more importantly, something that we didn't actually know since last time, and I've already gone and skipped past the next one. I don't actually have a slide for this, sadly. They've also said the following. We're going to implement a setting, probably tomorrow, that when you tick it, it makes it so that when you see a special animation, you will only see it once per day. Let's say, for example, you have your Breaker Iroha and she uses her special. Now you've seen that special for today, meaning that when she uses a special again, it gets automatically skipped. Oh, that's perfect. To be fair, I kind of understand why they don't want to have like a blanket skip everything, because they put a lot of work into these animations and they do look really nice. So I can understand that they don't want you to just immediately skip all of them, because now when future units get released, future units, you might not even see their animations even once, and they worked really hard on them. So for the very first time each day, you will see the animation. Of course, you can skip it manually if you want, but after that, automatically, it will be skipped every single time. Oh, absolutely perfect. Especially now, like this wasn't that big of an issue before, but now, especially with Crystallis farming, this has become much more important, as well as with link rates, which we'll see in a second. And then they also added more portraits to the archive shop, as they usually do. Nothing too special here. But now we actually get to the next slide. So they are, of course, as always, at the end of the month, they're going to add new characters to the standard pool that have been standard characters for a few months, like 2 months or so. In this case, we're going to get the Magius. They're now the 3 Magius characters are now going to join in the standard pool. And to celebrate that, we are getting a free 10 roll once for 24 hours. This is something that they've done now for the last 2 times they've done this year. For 24 hours only, you get a free 10 pull, which will be, if you're watching this video by the time it goes up, basically tomorrow or like in 24 hours since the video comes out. That's basically when this pull should be live, and then you can get hopefully someone, hopefully Alina, and maybe Nemo. I talk of whatever, we don't really care too much about her. They've also done something different now. Instead of just having this free 10 roll and that's it, to also celebrate that these characters are getting released, they're doing an additional celebration. They're saying, okay, we're gonna have a special gacha with these 3 characters, although I don't even know if... Yeah, I don't actually know... No, I think these 3 characters, so the 3 Magias are rate up, but they have a pity rate of 50 points. And then when you get to the 50 points, similar to other gachas that had the 50 and 100 point pity rate, you get a bonus character. But this bonus character that you get from the 50 points does not actually have rate up, right? Like the entire standard pool, including the Magias, are all at equal chance, which is a really weird way. You might, like, why is the bonus pull not actually also subject to, like, the rate up? Because the rate up is also, still gives you a decent chance of getting a standard character, so I don't know why they did that. But yeah, so they've now got a banner to go alongside with this, the Magias banner, and the Magias banner will have the 50 point pity timer, and that 50 points you get a bonus character that may not actually be one of the rate ups. However, to sweeten the deal a little, and this is a very nice little sweetener that they've added, they've basically saying, hey, you know how all these keys that you're getting, like the regular keys, you can only use them on the standard gacha? That's kind of sad. Wouldn't it be great if instead we gave you some keys that you could use on the current special gacha? And in this case, they're saying you can get a special amount of keys, and it's, I think, behind my camera a little, but I think I have another slide. Nope. But what they're saying is you can now, through various ways, like for example doing the current event or login bonuses or link rates or whatever, just by playing the game and doing the content of the game, you're gaining these special keys. And they have like a little tag to it, like a colored tag as you see here, and they're saying you can get these special keys, but they're only able to be used on this specific gacha right here. So this special Magius gacha is you're able to use these 20 keys on this gacha. That's 2 10 rolls, and these do count towards the bonus. So they're basically saying, okay, we're gonna give you 20 rolls just like that, which already in a game with 3% rate for 5 stars, 20 rolls is already a pretty decent chance you're gonna get a 5-star. And on top of that, now the actual free 5-star is only 30 rolls away, which, okay, that's maybe a little bit of a sweeter of a deal to say only 3 10 rolls and you get a guaranteed additional free 5-star, which yes, is going to be from the entire standard pool, but 3 pulls for a guaranteed additional 5-star character to what you might get in those 3 pulls, 3 10 pulls. That's decent. If you are saving for something, it's probably not going to be something that you should stop saving for and immediately roll this. But if you're someone who's not specifically saving for anything specific and you just want to get more characters generally, I think it's a pretty decent deal to get the 20 keys and then 3 10 rolls on top of that. And there you go. And there you got an additional 5-star character. Nice. Then we get to the next point on the list, where they're saying, okay, we're going to have a new tower as well. This is not coming tomorrow, at least as far as I know. This is going to come maybe a week or 2 later, but they're saying, okay, the next tower is already lined up. I don't think they even set a date for this, just saying, okay, there's going to be another tower at some point, and it's going to go all the way up to floor 60, and this time floor 60 will have the Needle Witch in it, which doesn't really mean anything, because in tower, all of the boss fights are a bit different than they are in regular gameplay. Like, this is not going to be that much like regular Needle Witch. I assume it's just going to have its own special weird mechanics that does weird stuff, probably built around counterattacks. I would assume this one might be more about counterattacks. So yeah, that's what's going to be in there, and this will be the first tower that of course has the tower skip functionality, where now if you've, let's say for example, you've already done floor 55 in the past tower, that means you get to skip, you go to the nearest 10, which is 50, and then 10 lower than that, which is 40. You get to skip 40 floors. So the next time you start, you're going to start on floor 41, and all of the rewards from floor 1 to 40, you're already going to immediately get them. Like, you just log in and it'll say, hey, congratulations, you skipped the first 40 floors, here's all the rewards. Nice, great. And then of course, if you beat this one, floor 60, and that means next time you're going to start at 51, interesting enough, so that's pretty cool. So that's going to be a lot of bosses that you'll never have to do ever again. If you are too scared of doing like Artist Witch, for example, a second time, you may not have to do that ever again, but you could retry the fight if you want to. I mean, no one's stopping you. So that's pretty cool. Next up, we have the new main story chapter. That's kind of the main reason why we're even doing this in the first place. This entire new section, that is, which is the main story, even though I have the least amount of stuff to say about the main story. Yeah, it's a new chapter. You know what's coming with a new chapter. We've got a new boss. We've got a new Pola Pictura levels. We have new portraits. We have like a new hard file boss as well, where we have login bonuses, the usual stuff. So yeah, nothing too much to say here. It is the end of Micro Record Arc 1. Awesome. Next up, score attack. So the score attack happens, but of course the score attack is usually attached to an event, and that is because there is going to be an event. And the event that we're getting for this is the finale, apparently, of the Mitama Coordinator Detective arc that we've already seen a bunch of episodes for. This will be the finale of that, which doesn't mean there won't be more Mitama events that just won't be called like detective stories of Mitama or whatever. The coordinator case files, I think they're called. Like, they won't be called that. They'll just be called Mitama goes out shopping and bumps into a ketchup man and puts ketchup on her cake or whatever. I don't know. So that's basically what future events, they might still involve Mitama, but this story arc, I would assume, with the case files will end here. And this will feature, interesting enough, Ui and Sakurako. And of course, yes, it will have a score attack, as you can see right here on screen, versus the Oasa of the Chelation Land Ferris Wheel, which also gives you these special keys for, as it says down here, for the Magius Fate Weave. Awesome. Now, I assume this might be something that they're going to do in the future as well, where whenever they have the special standard banner expansion, where they might have additional special keys for this specific special banner or whatever. I hope they do. And then we come to what is maybe the most important part of this entire video. Yay, we're a new character. They have focused on Mifuyu so hard for this past month, or for the main story and for all the side content and for the portraits and everything. It really looked like we're gonna get Mifuyu, especially because as far as relevance to the story goes, Mifuyu will never be more relevant than she is right now at this point in the story. And they're deciding, what if we instead focus on a character that wasn't even in the story yet? Think about it. Actually, you don't have to think about it. It's right here. It's Ui. So generally, I'm not a Mifuyu fan, so I don't really care too much about it. I just find it funny. I just find it really funny that instead we're gonna get Ui. So what does Ui do? She's a dark buffer. I'm gonna give you just the general overhaul, but I can tell you right now, if you've played Star Rail, she's Robin, but without the action advance. She's Robin without the action advance on the ult, and that's basically her. So the thing is that she sounds rather simple at first, and then it gets really weird. So her skill just does a bunch of buffs to the entire team, where she buffs all damage and increases dark damage dealt specifically, but not by a whole lot more. You're still getting most of your buffs, even if it's not a dark type character. So a lot of people have already said like, oh yeah, she's specifically for dark type characters, but not really. Like the actual buffs she gives to dark damage is so small, it doesn't really matter that much. You can play it with any character. Then her passive is, oh, whenever anyone else deals damage, which I think if it means multi-hit abilities like Swimsuit Saka, for example, it only counts as one time dealing damage, I'm pretty certain. And AoE abilities also only count as one time dealing damage, I'm pretty certain. She gains MP whenever allies deal damage. So yeah, that's pretty cool. She gains a lot of MP just from allies getting a lot of turns. So wouldn't it be really cool if allies got a lot of turns? On top of that, she also increases everyone's follow-up and counter-attack damage by 30%, which is a really nice damage bonus to just passively have, all looking really nice. And she also gives a small version of this on support ability. Nice, great. So that's pretty cool, especially because this is like an actual team buff that you can give as a support ability, which I think maybe one of the first ones. I don't think it's the first one, but I think it's one of the first ones to have a team-wide buff as a support ability. That's pretty cool. So pretty simple so far, awesome. And then we get to the actual special. This is where the Robin part comes in. So what does she do? When she uses her special, she just deals some damage, but more importantly, she gives herself a special buff. And this buff lasts for 1 turn. However, I believe with her Ascension 1, it might also increase the duration of this specific buff. And what this buff does is it reduces Ui's speed by 50%. Why does it do that? If you know about Robin, you know why. So what it also does is it increases all allies' speed by 30%. So wouldn't it be really nice if allies got a lot of turns and did a lot of attacks and did a lot of damage so that she could gain more MP? By the way, dealing damage also means that if you hit into a barrier and the barrier fully absorbs the damage, then you didn't actually deal damage. And also keep in mind that would also not give her MP. But yeah, so she already gives all her team a really nice amount of speed. Like 30% is a lot. That's more than Muamura, and that's more than Mummy A2, by the way. Keep that in mind. And if you equip, for example, a Tsuruno on her, then it's even more awesome. And it also gives 40% attack power. Wow, God, these buffs are really nice. You have really high damage up and attack up. Whoa. Whenever you have both of these together, they stack multiplicatively. So that's really nice bonus. This is why I think that Mummy was such a great buffer, and still is, of course, because she has both attack and damage dealt up. But yeah, you have a really high amount of both. So already looking really nice, and the highest amount of speed that a buffer can give. Perfect. Now, on top of that, also, whenever an ally attacks, they deal bonus damage, a tick of bonus damage equal to just 40% attack, but 40% of attack of Ui. So imagine that whenever anyone attacks, Ui does a normal attack for 40%. So of course, since she's a buffer and her attack power is not that high, it's not low either, it's actually kind of alright. Her normal attack does 100% attack damage. It's like 40% of a normal attack. So that's really low. That's really low, but it just passively happens on every single hit, or on every single attack rather, that everyone else does while this buff is up. So that's pretty cool, right? But I'll also mention that the actual attribute of this hit will depend on whoever attacks. So if, for example, a Swimsucker attacks the enemy, then the bonus hit will do aqua damage, but it will scale. It will basically 40% of Ui's attack will do the damage. So that's kind of weird, but yeah, that's basically how that works, it seems like. But then you remember, oh, this lasts for only 1 turn. One of Ui's turns. Man, it's kind of sad that all of these great buffs last for only 1 turn. But if allies get a lot of attacks, I might get my MP back. But even so, I would be getting my next turn really fast, right? So wouldn't it be great if my speed was reduced by 50%? That way, it takes a really long time to get to my next turn, and therefore, this buff can last longer. Yeah, like I said, that's Robin from Saria, where she heavily delays her next turn, but you get a lot of buffs in that window, and Robin also gains bonus hits on ally hits during that, so they kind of... It's legally distinct, okay? Legally distinct from Robin. I guess Ui doesn't sing. Unless she actually does sing during this ult, which would be kind of interesting. So yeah, the general idea is you use your skill, and I would assume you use your skill once, and then just with the attacks of your allies, you probably get to special really fast. So then when everyone has the buff from your skill, you use special, and then you just hope that Ui is really slow. You don't give her any speed. Don't give Ui any speed, although you might still give her something like a Tsuruno support for better buffs, which still has some speed on it. but as far as you can, don't give her any speed. Instead, make her as slow as possible, which is hard because she's really fast. She's 119 speed, that's a lot. But try to make it as slow as possible so that the buff from her ultimate lasts as long as possible, and then you want everyone else to be as fast as possible, which is helped by the speed buff, to do as many hits as possible, and that way, when her next turn comes around and her special buff ends, she can then use another skill to refresh her buffs, which you will need to do because everyone else gets a lot of turns, and then hopefully immediately do another special, so that you can always keep the special up forever. And the Ascension one might actually help with this by making the skill buffs and the ult buff lasts for longer, so you don't need to immediately rush to the next special, I would assume, to keep this stuff up. So yeah, already she looks really good. I'm gonna say it right now, she looks really good. She may be the next best buffer in the game, next to Mummy and maybe Moimura. She's looking really, really good. That said, if you already have like an A2 Mummy, you're not gonna kick out A2 Mummy for an A0 Ui, I would assume. But yeah, still really good buffer. And if you don't have an A2 buffer, an A2 Mummy, and maybe you have a Ui then instead, maybe you want to use Ui instead, who knows. Now, since it increases damage from follow-up attacks and dark damage, yes, she's kind of perfect for Homura. Homura just got even stronger, even though Homura was already the best attacker in the game. Homura just got even better. Awesome. And also, Ren is also one of the best characters in the game, and she got even better because now she gets even more follow-up attack damage. Awesome, fantastic, great. So the two of the best DPS in the game, Homura and Ren, just got hyper buffed by this character, and they were already the best. They didn't need any buffs, and they got them anyway. So shoutouts to Homura, shoutouts to Ren, and yes, some other characters might also get buffed by this if they either dark type or if they have follow-up attacks, or if they have somehow both, which I think is only Homura. They're gonna be liking this a lot. But yeah, her A2 just makes her generally a little bit better. It's not one of those A2 that drastically changes the game, like a lot of like Mummy A2 changes the game. But this one is just, yeah, she's a bit better at what she does. Where now when she uses her skill, which won't be very often because she slows herself by so much that she doesn't get many turns. But whenever she does use her skill, she does 10% action advance to all allies. Okay, sure. And then also while she has her ult buff, she also, on top of that, also gives everyone 15% weakness damage to everyone. Awesome, nice. A4 is a regular one. And the EX is behind my camera. It's not really very interesting, to be fair. It's kind of boring. It just says, hey, while you have your special buff, you take 10% less damage, which it feels like damage reduction is the kind of thing that they put on EXs that they don't want to be good, right? Like if they want to have an EX that's not good, they just give it a little bit of damage reduction and say done. That's what they did here as well. What is more important is that her EX actually gives 10% MP recovery, which that may actually be good. May also not be good. It depends. It depends on the cycles of your special. Like if you can keep up special every single time, like if special never drops off because you do special and then you have a really long time, and then skill, and then another special, really long time, skill, special. Like if you can do that, you don't need 10% MP recovery, right? It's not going to do anything for you if you can do that. But only if you can do that. But maybe you need the 10% MP recovery to get there. Also keep in mind that 10% MP recovery by itself doesn't actually increase the MP from her passive because of rounding. So this would make the 5 into a 5.5, which gets rounded down, in this case, because it always gets rounded down, sadly, to 5. So you need at least 20% MP recovery to push this to a 6. And I think the other MP recovery passive, Crystallis, would do that. So you would also need the MP recovery passive, Crystallis, on top of this to reach the next breakpoint. Or you have a Mummy on the team, or just a Critic on the team, or something else that gives MP recovery. But yeah, the MP recovery might be interesting, might not be interesting. We'll have to see how it actually lines up with her specials. And if you have her A1, you might not even need to line it up like that anyway. But yeah, overall, she looks extremely good. Looks extremely good overall. And that's about it. Her essentials are not as powerful as some of the other buffers. Like the +1 SP when you use her special move, she's not going to use it as often as other buffers. Although actually maybe she will, because if she's getting MP all the time. Yeah, no, actually her A4 might actually be extremely good. Yeah, never mind, she might actually have some of the best A4 in the game. But we'll have to test it out. But for now, she looks really good. Do you need to pull for her? If you have an A2 Mummy already, I would say no, you don't need to. Generally, Nagisa and Akumura may not be too far off. They might be only like 3 months off or something, or 2 to 3 months. We don't quite know, but they might actually be that far off. Maybe even, they might be sooner than we think, because There's gonna be Magia Day soon, and in Magia Day, Nagisa's voice actor is there. And Magia Day is at the end of September, so at the end of September, Nagisa's voice actor is present at the big announcement news segment. I have a feeling we're gonna get Nagisa very soon. So if you really like Nagisa instead, you might want to save. And since we're gonna get Nagisa, I would assume we might get Rebellion. And if we get Rebellion, we might get Akumura soon as well. So they might actually be somewhat close. They might also not be close, we don't know. But I would be careful. Keep in mind, she's a standard character anyway. They're all standard characters, unless I'm specifically mentioning the limited. They're all standard characters. So this is a standard character. It's gonna be added to the standard pool at the end of October. So even if you don't get it right now, yeah, whatever. But it gets even better. Because they want to feed us, and they've cooked. Because they've said, okay, you know what? We're gonna get a free roll every day. It's just a free single roll, but that's not the important part. So, well, first off, you're gonna get a free single roll every day on the UI banner, on the actual UI banner, for 30 days. Already that's 30 pulls. Awesome. I don't actually know if they mentioned if UI banner has the 50-100 bonus pity. I think it does. But yeah, so you're gonna get 30 bonus rolls already on this banner, which with the 3%, the 5% rate being this high, the 5-star rate being this high at 3%, Jesus, decent chance you might even get UI already. Awesome, perfect. But they've also mentioned, hey, you're doing this once every day for 30 days, but if you do it at least 15 times, you're gonna get medals, right? You're gonna get a medal every day, and if you got 15 medals, you can just get a 5-star character. It just says you get a 5-star Kyoko guaranteed Magia Key. Awesome, yeah, awesome. You just get a free 5-star character for doing this 15 days. So not only are you getting 30 free rolls, you're also getting a free 5-star. And of course, it's possible you're just gonna get UI from those free rolls. Oh, love that. We're eating good. We're eating so good. Oh, love that. Now the next segment is basically the entire rest of the video. There's a lot of stuff here, but I've mentioned a lot of it already in the video before this, where I talked about link rate. Yes, it's the co-op content. The co-op content is going to work the following. So basically, you're going to go into the menu that is already available right now in the game, although it's locked off sadly, but it's already there. And if you go into the menu, you will then be able to start a boss fight. You can start up to 6 boss fights a day. Granted, you actually beat the boss. If not, it doesn't count as an actual try. So when you start a boss fight, you then have 1 hour to defeat the boss. But you probably won't be able to actually defeat the boss when the boss gets really difficult, because the boss has a lot of HP. And you can only fight the boss for a couple of turns, and then you get kicked out. So how do you actually beat the boss then? Well, it's co-op. So what happens is when you start a backup, and when you start a battle, you get backup from other players. And you can select when you start a battle if you want backup from any player, if you want backup only from your union members, or if you want backup from no one, you put on that helm, you put on that pot on your helm, and you say, let me solo her, and you just go for it. You can do that as well. But generally, you just try to do as much damage as possible, and whatever damage you do to the boss sticks on the boss health bar. And then when other players come in, and they're also fighting the boss, they're doing damage to that same health bar. So if you do 1,000,000 damage and the boss has 10 million HP, then other people will see that. Other people will see, oh, you've already done 1,000,000 damage to the boss's health bar. They only need to do 9 million now. And since it's 10 players, hopefully between those 10 players, you're going to be able to, together, do that 10 million damage. That's basically the idea. So you're still fighting by yourself. It's still you and your team fighting against the boss as if it was just you, but other players are also fighting against the boss, and you're all working together to communally reduce the HP bar down to 0. And when the HP bar gets reduced down to 0, before the timer is up, and you get 1 hour per boss fight, before that 1 hour timer is up, you've beaten the boss, and everyone who's participated gains stuff, points or whatever. That's pretty cool. So what is there to it? So like I said, you can start up to 6 battles a day. You can help others out, but if you want to help others out, like if other people have started a boss fight and you want to help jump into that boss fight, you'll have to pay something called LP, which is not Let's Plays. You have to pay these LP, and you generate these passively every day. They're basically QP. They're like QP, but red. They're red QP, awesome. And there's also items that restore these immediately. I think they're doing this basically so that you can't just have like 100 people botting, basically, and immediately killing every boss. Let's say the 100 biggest whales in the game would you just bot every single link raid, and that would kind of trivialize the entire system. So they're making it so, okay, it's a finite resource, so you can't just carry everyone immediately forever. And yeah, you spend some LP to fight, help others people fight, but it costs more LP the stronger the boss is. And basically, whenever you fight and destroy a boss, you unlock new difficulty levels, and then you can increase the difficulty level of the boss and say, oh, I want to fight a level 15 boss. And then you beat the level 15 boss, and then you say, oh, I want to fight the level 16 boss now. And it goes all the way up to difficulty level 20. And like I said, the higher the level is, the more LP it costs to join in on the battle. And of course, the more HP the boss will have and the more damage it will do to you. So keep all of that in mind. That it will be harder to actually kill the boss at higher levels. Now, why do you do all this? Because when you defeat the boss, first off, if it's a boss that you have started, so if you start a boss fight and the boss gets defeated, if you defeat up to 3 bosses that way each day, so you start at least 3 boss fights each day and defeat those bosses, you will gain daily rewards. And those daily rewards will actually be increased if you're in a union. So just be in a union and do at least 3 fights that you started each day, and you get a lot of rewards. Cool. On top of that, you'll also gain some currency that you can spend on a shop, and you gain medals. And you gain more medals and more currency, I think, if you have done more damage. So if you've participated more, you get more stuff, which makes sense because otherwise people might just send in like level 1 teams that immediately die and just hope that someone else kills the boss and then they can leech all the rewards, which we don't want. We don't want leeches. We want everyone to actually pull their weight. Everyone needs to carry their weight. Okay, so that's basically the idea behind that. And then with all of those items that you get from fighting bosses and defeating bosses and helping other people out, you of course gain regular gem rewards and those daily rewards, but you also are able to buy items from a shop. And that shop has a new type of item that I don't have a slide for right now, but it's called a plant flore. I think it's probably going to be called something different when it goes live right now, but that's what the Japanese calls it. And these items are very interesting because you now have a different button on your Crystallis menu, and that Crystallis menu on a character. So you get, say for example, you go on Homura, and you go into Homura's Crystallis menu, there's going to be a new button that says use plant flores. And what it does is there's different rarities of plant flores, like a blue one or a purple one or a orange one. And when you use, for example, an orange flore, you'll then draw a random, a random orange Crystallis for Homura in this case. So you can say, for example, you get a new character, you get a Ui, for example, and you have 10 orange plant flores, you're going to immediately go to Ui and say, you get 10 orange Crystallis now. And if you're lucky, you get the best ones. Nice. Now, can you get EX Crystallis that way? Sadly not. Sadly, you can't get EX Crystallis that way. You still have to get EX Crystallis from actually playing the battle. And I think they're doing this so that people actually play Crystallis battles, because otherwise Crystallis battles might already be kind of pointless. That said, you're not going to get many of these. You're only going to get like a handful of plant flores. But even so, it's kind of interesting that they're at least giving you more ways of specifically targeting high rarity gems. And even outside of the highest rarity gems, I assume they give you a lot more of the purple rarity flores. And in most cases, the purple lineups are already good. You don't need to have the highest rarity of Crystallis on everyone. It's fine if it's just purple rarity on some of your characters, and this helps out a lot if you can just instantly throw like 100 purple Crystallis at someone and hope they already get all the ones they need, and then you don't even need that character to enter into the Crystallis system. And also keep in mind, not every character's EX is actually good. Like some characters have EXs that you might not even use. Like depending on how the MP bonuses line up, you might not need Ui's EX, for example. Just to throw that out there. So that's pretty cool. And then something else that they've also mentioned that I don't have a slide for because they didn't tweet it out for some reason. I don't know why they didn't tweet it out. They said there's going to be future side story events in early and mid-September. We're going to focus on some character that didn't really get much content yet, or that just we want to focus on, specifically Mega Record Arc 1 characters, which probably, depending on what we saw, like they try to hide the name of the events, but if you count the actual number of letters, the first event is almost guaranteed to be Manen Sakura no Uwasa, which is Sakurako. So the first event is probably going to be about Sakurako, which might also mean Sakurako banner, who knows. And the second one maybe is going to be Mifuyu. Could be a lot of characters, but I'm going to assume it's going to be Mifuyu because we're going to need Mifuyu at some point, and I would assume they would release Mifuyu alongside an event that is about her, so I would assume maybe Mifuyu. And then of all of that, there's one more thing. Oh god, it doesn't never end. There's going to be special banners. There's more special gacha banners. And what they're doing is they're saying, well, for the link rates, this link rate boss right now, in Season 1, because it's Season 1 of link rate, it's going to be weak to Aqua, Dark, and Void. So we're going to have a rotating banner. that for the first 4 days, starting tomorrow, will be, I think, an Aqua banner, which is only Aqua characters rate up, and then it's going to be an only Dark character up rate up, and then it's only be a, I think, no, the next one is Void, I think, after that. And then after that, it's going to be a Dark type rate up, or the other way around, I don't know. But basically, it's going to be a rotating banner where every 4 days, it's going to rotate to the next element. So if you really need specifically Void characters, maybe, because the Void banner is actually kind of stacked with Moemura, with Ren, with Alina. That's a stacked lineup. That may actually be a decent banner if you really want these characters. But yeah, that's the news. There's going to be less news probably the next few weeks because they're gearing up for Magia Day. Magia Day is end of September. And Magia Day will have the biggest news of the entire year. It always is. Every single time with Magia Record, Magia Day had the biggest news. So end of September, Magia Day, we're going to get insane amount of news. And we're probably going to get news not just for what they're doing on Magia Day, but also what they're going to do way after. Like they might say, hey, within the next year, or within the next year, we're going to give you this and this and this new game system, for example. Like, oh, we're going to introduce a new game mode within the next year, right? Just to keep you on your toes and that you know what's going to be happening in the future. So that will be a really big video. That might like be a 2-hour news video, who knows? But that was that. Hope you guys enjoyed this. Hit subscribe, ring the bell, and I'll see you guys next time. And as always, shout outs to my members, Lip Van Winkle and Simple Tor. Thank you very much.